Hello, everyone. My name is Layla, the current editor-in-chief at the Mesa Press. For this episode of Something Newsy, I thought it might be nice to take a peek behind the metaphorical curtain of journalism. I got the chance to talk to two professionals all about the ins and outs of journalism, both as a career and academically. So I hope you enjoy. I'm here with Ryan Finley, the San Diego Union Tribune's very own sports editor. Thank you for agreeing to this interview, Mr. Finley.
No problem, Layla. Thank you so much for having me on.
Of course. Firstly, I would really appreciate it if you could tell our listeners a bit about yourself and the work that you do.
Sure. Yeah. As the sports editor of the San Diego Union Tribune, I'm in charge of our sports department, which includes a small army of full-time and freelance reporters, an assistant sports editor, a copy desk, a design, a sports designer, and yeah, kind of the whole team of people who are in charge of covering San Diego sports, whether that's pros, colleges, high schools, amateur stuff, et cetera. I'm a San Diego native, grew up here, went away to
Mhm.
college and kind of never came back, and was living very happily in Arizona until about 3 years ago. Actually, Layla, about 3 years ago this week, when
Mhm.
I accepted a job to return to San Diego, packed up the family, moved back here, and with the exception of real estate prices and gas prices, it's been a dream come true since I've come back, and just so happy to work at the Union Tribune, which is the newspaper I grew up reading, and
Mhm.
so happy to be surrounded by so many capable, talented people.
Wow, that's fantastic. Well, it's nice to have you back. I'm glad you're home. So, you've been in the field for more than 18 years, is that correct?
Yeah, yeah. Thanks for making me feel old. Appreciate that. It's like
Was my intention.
20, it's like 20, something like that, maybe a little bit more. Yeah, yeah. I got started. If you'd like me to give you just a quick overview, coming out of college, I got a job at a satellite newsroom
Mm.
for what was the old North County Times. The North County Times was a newspaper based in Escondido, just north of San Diego. And they had a satellite office in Temecula. It's about the size of my living room, and I worked there for about a little over a year, and then after that, I returned to Tucson, Arizona, which was the city where I had gone to college, and started covering. I was the high school sports editor there for about a year and a half. Then I began covering college football, which is something I did
Mhm.
for about 8 years. And that was a blast, super fun. Got to travel, got to see all sorts of fun things. And then I transitioned into becoming a sports editor, and did
Yeah.
that in Tucson for about 8 years before taking the job here in San Diego.
Do you remember how it felt when you were just getting into that realm of reporting? Did you feel nervous or did you feel prepared? What was your mindset going into it?
Oh, I think like everybody. Well, hold on. I'm gonna date myself here for a minute. When I was in school, obviously things were a little bit different than they are now.
Mm-hmm.
In many ways, there were better opportunities out there, but there weren't as many opportunities. The media wasn't as fragmented as it is now.
Mm-hmm.
So you were all sort of aiming for the same three or four jobs, and I remember being told in school that the vast majority of people who majored in journalism would go on to do something else, and I always thought that was a terrible thing to tell somebody when they were in college, and b, I was kind of determined to prove them wrong. Like, no, I majored in journalism in college because I wanted to work in journalism, like, and I wanted to work in sports, and so there was a stretch. I was on the 4.5 year plan, and so I graduated a semester late from the University of Arizona. So that was like in December. I did not get a full time job until I believe that June.
Wow.
And so there were about 6 months there where I patched it together. I was essentially freelancing and working part time, and trying to do everything I could to get that first full time job. And while I was, I think, pretty confident in what I was able to do, and wasn't too scared off by the job market, there were probably some times there where I wondered if it was ever going to happen for me. And I consider myself lucky that my first job was, in Temecula, just north of San Diego. It was a place I was familiar with. I was able to be surrounded by family and friends. Most people I know who took their first jobs went someplace sort of in the middle of nowhere, or someplace that they had never been before. And I think I got really lucky to come back to Southern California. I wasn't here very long, but it was exactly what I needed. It was sort of the ideal first job. I got to learn a lot, got to meet a lot of nice people, and then move on to the next thing. And so, yeah,
Mm-hmm.
I do remember a little uncertainty back then, but my goodness, that uncertainty, once I got once I had my first full-time job, I was so ready to just dive into it with everything I had because there was some of that uncertainty there for a few months.
Right.
I think it made me a better worker and a better reporter once I did start working full time.
Impressive. That's pretty cool.
I don't know about impressive, but yeah, it was.
But it takes a lot of nerves. I would know. I'm just getting into, the dredges of reporting myself. It takes a lot of effort to prepare yourself mentally to
Sure.
keep all these questions in mind and go out there and, it's understandable to be uncertain about it, I think.
Right. Well, and the thing that journalism teaches us, and it's this great skill, right? I mean, I'm fairly confident at this stage of my life that I could kind of be successful at whatever line of work I wanted to go into because of the things I've learned in journalism.
Mm,
And one of the things that I think we all learn when we're first getting started, and it's really uncomfortable. Hey, like this is not a fun thing at first, is to be able to talk to strangers, to be able to
mm-hmm.
make phone calls and work it a little bit and be persistent, persistent to the point of annoying. If you've ever tried to get an interview with somebody who doesn't really want to talk to you, right? You understand how important it is to stay persistent and how important it
Right.
is to try to reach them, sort of with a good offer or try to explain to them why you want to talk to them. And I think that those skills I actually learned as just a baby reporter, as a young reporter, really helped me in the job search. I understood then that it wasn't simply about deciding I wanted that job, but it was about making myself stand out from some of the other candidates. It was about reaching out to the people who were doing the hiring and
Mm-hmm.
saying, "Hey, this is something I'm really interested in." And I did the same thing when it came time to apply for this job in San Diego. It wasn't simply that I knew the outgoing sports editor and a handful of people on staff, although I did.
Mm-hmm.
It was I made an effort to figure out who was doing the hiring, figure out what they were looking for. Then I contacted them directly and said, like, "Hey, I'm a candidate for this job. This is what I'm all about. If you have any questions for me, I don't want to nag you, but if you have any questions for me, here's how you can reach me." And
Mm-hmm.
these are skills we learn when we're learning to be a reporter. And I think it really, really helps me every day. Every day in real life, I use some skill that I picked up as a baby reporter that helps me do all sorts of stuff, whether that's being a dad or coaching
Mm-hmm.
my little guy's basketball team or making sure that I can get a doctor's appointment at the right time or whatever. It's these
Mm-hmm.
skills of communication and persistence, I think, really pay off.
Yeah, absolutely. And to add on to that, a lot of the time it really is just that easy of just reaching out, right? Like so many people expect that when they reach out, they'll just immediately get denied. So they just say, "Why even bother?" Right? But the more you ask and the more you question people and you explain to people and you build rapport with people, the more people will just say yes, typically, right? They'll just try to work it out with you. And that's really important as well, I think.
Oh yeah, absolutely. And it's funny. I'm lucky in my current position that I can hire some people, right? And
Mm-hmm.
that I've filled some open positions, and yeah, I get to hire freelancers all the time, and so often I really do try to maybe it's not the skill I'm looking for, but it's a great tiebreaker, right?
Mm-hmm.
If I have two candidates and one of them has communicated with me, knowing that I'm the person who's doing the hiring and explained who they are and what they're interested in, or if somebody's just a, a better person to talk to, if there's that rapport there, if they can interview well for a job, then they can interview a source for a story really well too.
Mm-hmm.
And now having been both an applicant and sort of a hiring manager, these skills are getting rarer and rarer. And Layla, I'm so glad that you wanted to go down this road a little bit because I do find with some of the younger reporters who I interact with now, the phone is not their friend a lot of times.
Mm-mm.
They prefer texting, they prefer email, and that's cool. But this is a people business, and I still think that the best way to really talk to people, and especially if you're trying to build their trust and develop a rapport with them, the best way to do that is to talk to them.
Absolutely.
It's not to text. It's not to be, sort of, I used to work with a young reporter who'd email somebody and say, "Can you answer these 5 questions for me by 5 o'clock today?" And like that strategy never worked. Like I was like, "Hey, call the dude, call him, make somebody tell you no." Because it's most of us, this is the way life works. Most of us would much rather help somebody than say no to them.
Right.
I mean, I think that as human beings, especially when somebody comes to you the right way and asks you the right questions. We want to help. And, I think that's a skill that hopefully isn't going away, but I think that that's a skill that we all need to continue to hone every day is just communicating and talking and asking questions. Because I think that good things happen when you stop texting and start calling.
Yeah.
Or, God forbid, even meet somebody in person.
In
Right? That's even
person,
better.
right? God
Yeah.
forbid, meet face
Yeah.
to face. Who does that anymore?
I know. Take somebody out to lunch. In my job, one of the best things I can do, whether that's with a source or a reporter of mine, is to take them out to lunch. Is to
Hmm.
sit there, order a chicken sandwich. You don't even have to talk about work, but communicating with them and connecting with them on a human level, they will inherently want to help you in your path. And
Hmm.
that's just such a big thing. It's a little thing, but it's so important.
And when you think about it, that's kind of like at the heart of journalism is that human connection between people, whether it's between the audience and the reporter or the reporter and their sources. It's about the honesty and that genuine connection.
It absolutely is. It absolutely is. And it's really funny. I guess now's the time when I tell you that I took one class at Mesa College in my life, and it was,
No
believe it or not, a
way.
speech class. It was a speech class.
Hmm.
Took it after my freshman year of college. I'll be honest with you, I took it because it would replace a math grade that I got, and I didn't do particularly well in math because I'm a journalism guy. But
Understandable.
but I took a speech class at Mesa, and again, some of the stuff that they teach you there, right, is eye contact, communication, being persistent, being clear with what you're saying. Those are still skills that I use today.
Kind of segueing a bit maybe more into the specific skills besides being able to build rapport and connections with people that are required in contemporary journalism. Would you say that journalists nowadays are required to be more versatile than they were
Oh
before?
yeah, I mean that's actually you phrased it perfectly. When I graduated from college, and again, it wasn't doesn't feel like that long ago, but I guess it was 20 something years ago, 22 years ago. The number one thing was, can you write? That was it. You were judged by your clip to the point where, and think about this, when I used to mail out packets trying to get that first job, I mailed out sort of a manila folder that had my resume paperclip to the front and then Xerox copies of my best stories on the inside of this folder. And they would judge you based on not really who you were, but what your work said. And it used to be really easy. Can you write? Which is why we have sort of in our
Mm-hmm.
heads these, at least in sports, these sort of stereotypes of maybe a like a sloppy sports reporter, doesn't really dress well, may not be the best communicator, but can write like you can't believe, right?
Mm-hmm.
Nowadays, it's not, can you write well? It might be in the top three,
Right.
but it's probably in the top five of things that you're looking for as a hiring editor. And it kills me to say that, but number one is, are you committed? Are you willing to do the work? Because the job can be hard. The job can be time consuming. Number two is, how versatile are you? Can you pull out your cell phone and videotape something if, let's say, the high school football game you're covering erupts into a brawl, right? Can you pull out your phone and take some video? How connected and committed are you to social media, to getting your work out there, to making sure that you're representing the news organization well out in the community and sharing your
Mm-hmm.
work? How well can you build a Rolodex? God, that's a terrible old phrase. How well can you build a list of contacts, right? And then it's kind of, can you write?
Right.
And it's different. I say all the time, I think that I would be completely overmatched by today's college students, because today's college students can do a little bit of everything pretty well, whether that's design or host a podcast like you're doing,
Mm-hmm.
or write, or the social media stuff. I'm constantly amazed at how versatile and how adaptable today's young journalists are. And that's why I have so much hope for the future of journalism, is because the people who are coming out of college can do everything really well, not just write, but they can do all this other stuff.
Mm-hmm. Hear that, Mesa? You guys are doing good. Looking outside at a broader view of journalism instead of just sports reporting or even typical reporting, but like the entire media landscape that journalism exists in, do you think it's in a good state right now?
Wow, that's a good question. I work with so many talented, capable people at the Union Tribune, both at my desk, and with the other departments. That yeah, I mean, I'm so encouraged every day by the work that we do. I wish there were more of us. I wish there was more competition. My previous stop in Tucson, Arizona, when I first started there, we were the main paper. The Arizona Daily Star was the name of the newspaper. But there was an afternoon paper. This is how sort of long ago this was. There was a second paper run by somebody else that came out in the afternoon. And eventually that paper folded. And at first we were all sort of happy because these people were our rivals, right? And okay. But it took us about a week to realize that the competition made all of us better. The fact that there was somebody else out there who had your exact beat but was doing it for somebody
Mm-hmm.
else. We pushed each other to do good work and to really go about it the right way. And I guess that's sort of my thought now. I live in a market in San Diego, which is a massive city, but the people who cover sports on a daily basis, it's really limited. We go to a San Diego State press conference, let's say, and it's us and it's somebody from the East Village Times,
Mm-hmm.
which is a website that covers San Diego State, and it's some TV
Mm-hmm.
stations. We go to a Padre game, it's us, and it's somebody from MLB.com, and it's somebody from The Athletic, it's somebody from the East Village Times, and it's some TV station. The competition isn't what I hope it will one day be, because I think that the competition makes us all better. But I am encouraged. I think that the people who are in journalism now are in it for the right reasons. I think they're in it because they're called to do it. I can only speak for the people who I work with on a daily basis, but the people who I work with, especially in sports, this is what they love more
Mm-hmm.
than anything. It's what they love to do. And how can you not be excited about your profession when you're surrounded by people like that?
Mm-hmm. Hard not to.
Hard not to.
What about some advice for students of journalism right now? What would you say would look the best resume or the best portfolio you could be handed right now by someone who just graduated? What would you be looking for?
Sure. I think it's twofold. I
Uh
think
huh.
number one, if you're lucky enough to be in college and you know what you want to do,
Mm-hmm.
not just, hey, I want to go into journalism, but hey, I want to be a sports writer, a sideline reporter, a radio host, whatever it is. If you think you know what you want to do, go do it. Go do it. Go
Mm-hmm.
do it for free if you have to. Go do it for cheap if you have to,
Mm-hmm.
but go do it. I think that not only will it show you what if this is actually something you really want to do for a living or not,
Mm-hmm.
but you start sort of accumulating those hours, and it's I'm a big fan of kind of the 10,000 hour rule, right? To become a real master at what you do, you have to do it all the time.
Right.
And to me, number one is get some reps, right? If somebody's sending me a resume just out of college and they haven't interned anywhere
Mm-hmm.
or they haven't written for anybody, how do I know that this is something you're actually good at or something you want to do if you haven't done it yet?
Mm-hmm.
And lots of places exist that will give you that first chance. It's daunting, yes, but go work for your school paper, go work for your school radio station, host a podcast,
Mm-hmm.
start a website. Anymore, these things are really inexpensive to do. Do a Substack. Start if
Right.
you like fantasy football, start a fantasy football Substack. And I don't care if the only person who subscribes is your mom. Do it.
Right.
Because that shows me that you're passionate about something and that you're willing to put in the hours to get better at it. So I think that's number one.
Mm-hmm.
Number two, the versatility thing is huge. We've talked about it already.
Right.
Figure out what skills you need to accumulate to set you aside from everybody else. It doesn't have to be much. We're not saying like learn how to code, right? But like, you know, polish up your Instagram reel, develop a TikTok page, do some of those things that maybe not everybody's doing. And it's so less
Mm-hmm.
scary to people in college who are exposed to these things every day. It's not nearly as intimidating as it is for somebody like me who sits at a desk,
Mm-hmm.
right? Go learn this stuff. Have somebody teach you this stuff.
Right.
And again, you don't have to be a master of it, but if I'm looking at a resume and it says, "Hey, you do know a little bit about Final Cut Pro," or "Hey, you do have a TikTok following," it shows me that you're willing to do things to get ahead, that you're willing to learn other skills to put yourself ahead of the
Mm-hmm.
crowd, and that's huge. And
Mm.
thirdly, it's pick up the phone.
Absolutely.
Keep in mind, hey, you know what? By the way, I prefer to communicate via text too, with like my wife and my brother and my friends, right? I like it too. But like when it's time to be a professional, the people who you're going to be talking to as a reporter, almost all of them prefer the phone. And the people who are doing the hiring, most of whom I'm just going to guess here, might skew a little bit older than college students, right?
Mm-hmm.
They prefer the phone. And especially if you feel like you have a personality that's a plus, that's an asset, I would find as many opportunities as you could to show off that personality.
Right.
And, as you can tell, because I'm prattling on and on here, I feel like I can talk a little. And, I always thought that that was a skill that might set me apart a little bit from some of your average reporters. And so
Hmm.
I always tried to find a situation where I could get somebody on the phone. When I'm trying to get somebody to talk to me for a story, it's so much better to call and talk to the receptionist at that person's office or to set up a lunch meeting than it is to fire off a list of questions that somebody can ignore.
Right.
Make them say no to you. And I think that that's kind of my best advice is, make yourself so persistent and so pleasant to deal with and so right there that somebody's going to have to say, "Hey, thanks, but we're not interested."
Hmm.
And, it hurts when that happens. I've been told no, but, be persistent because that's going to work out.
Hmm.
And as a reporter, the best thing you can be is persistent. Better than skill, better than any skill you can have.
Right.
Be persistent. And when you're looking for a job, it's the same thing. Be persistent. Cast a wide net, but if you find something you really like, zoom in on it. Reach out to the people who are doing the hiring. Ask them what skills you need to get or to work on. Even if you're not their number one choice. So for the next time they have an opening, you can be their number one choice.
Hmm.
Be a good human being. Be
Right.
a friendly human being. It's not as hard as it sounds.
Yeah.
And if you can do all those things, if you
Yeah.
can be persistent, if you can be communicative, if you can be versatile, and if you can be constantly working to improve, you can have any job you want by the time it's all said and done.
Were there any standout moments in your career that you think really established that sports editing was what you wanted, or sports reporting was what you wanted to do?
Oh, yeah, that's a good question. Yeah, I was lucky enough to be surrounded by really good, really talented people, especially early in my career. And
Hmm.
sometimes it was as simple as looking over at somebody who I admired and watching how they worked, and then saying, I want to do that. I want to do what he does, so I'm going to work as hard as he does. That's part of it. I think the thing that got me into being an editor actually was I had a great editor. And,
Hmm.
it's weird. Journalism it's a team sport, but it's also very much an individual sport, right?
Right.
So in a lot of ways, and if you'll allow me to be sort of sports dorky here for a minute, it's a little bit
Go
like
ahead.
it's a little bit like golf, right? You can play on a high school golf team, and I guess at the end of the year, they do hand out a trophy for the best high school golf team. But at the end of the day, it's a bunch of individuals playing an individual sport together, right?
Right.
I was I really loved being an individual and only worrying about my beat and my stories when I was a reporter. It took having a good editor to realize that there's some real value in being kind of the coach, right?
Hmm.
That you can impact a lot of lives and help in ways that you never thought possible if you lean into the fact that yes, I want to coach. And so for me, that was really the challenge was I went from worrying about only me and only my beat for the first 12 years of my career to then worrying about everybody else and everybody else's beat. It's because I had one great boss who helped my life so much and helped my career so much that I wanted to be able to be that person for somebody else. Now, have I been that person for somebody else? My goodness, I hope so. I who knows? But uh, for me, that was sort of the turning point. And we can talk about stories and about topics of things that I've worked on, but I think the thing that made me want to get into editing at least was I had a really, to use a dumb
Uh-huh.
sports analogy, I had a really good coach. And I never really thought of being a coach until I had a really good coach. And then I realized how important good coaches are. And, if that's all I'm known as here, in my little world with my group of reporters, my 10 reporters, whatever it is, as somebody who's a good coach, I'll take it. Because I think that's a really high compliment.
That's fantastic. Well, it sure seems like you are a energetic presence.
If that's a nice way of you saying I don't shut up, thank you very much.
Hey, that's perfect for this line of work, right? We love people who don't shut up.
Exactly. I'd be a great interview. It's yeah, it's you know what? I'm lucky, I'm in my 40s. I'm lucky that this is kind of all I ever wanted to do. It's what I I I knew when I was in high school that this is something I wanted to pursue and to be able to do it for as long as I've done it and to still wake up every day looking forward to work. I think that makes me one of the lucky ones. And, if you find something, whether it's journalism or something else that you love that doesn't feel like work, lean into that. Lean into it because that's what you're supposed to be doing for a living. And, the beauty
Mm,
for me is I work my butt off. I'm very proud of how hard I work, but it doesn't feel like work. It's
mm.
it's a privilege. And find that thing. And when you find that thing, you'll know. And when you find that thing, do everything you can to do that for the rest of your
Wonderful. I couldn't have said it better myself.
life.
Okay. So, any last minute thoughts or opinions?
No, 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 no. It's you ask great questions, and again, I only spent a very brief amount of time at Mesa a million years ago, but I think I got an A in the class, so I was
Heck
happy about
yeah.
that. I still don't quite know why they're called the Olympians. Maybe you can let me know at a later date.
I'm
Um,
still not quite sure about that
how
myself. I think I'll look into that.
it's a hell of a mascot
It
name. It's a
is.
lot better than being like the Wildcats,
Yeah, it's
Um,
powerful, right?
It is. But no, you know what? You guys are so, you guys, people in school right now, there are so many avenues to make a real impact in journalism, much more so than there were when I was in
Hmm.
college. I just encourage, whoever's out there, if there's something you're passionate about, go do it, find a way to do it. Like you said, there are avenues to do it. Start a Substack. You could start a website tonight. Go do the work.
Hmm.
That's the best way to get better at this. This isn't like law school where you go to law school and then, you pass a test and then you're a lawyer. This is a skill
Right.
you have to work on and stay sharp all the time. And,
Hmm.
the only way to get better at it is to keep doing it. And so find what you
Hmm.
want to do and then do the thing over and over again. That's my best advice.
Just do it.
Yep, just do it. Yep.
After talking with Mr. Finley, I still had some questions about journalism, so I thought I'd reach out to someone who teaches it. I'm here with Dave Oates, lecturer and public relations specialist. Thank you for taking your time to talk. I really appreciate it. I know it's quite a busy time of the year, so it's really nice that you take your time to come speak with us.
It's my pleasure. Thanks for having me.
Hmm. So, Mr. Oates, would you mind telling us a bit about the work that you do?
Well, I currently am in what I call a crisis PR specialist, but really it's more crisis communications. So I get hired by for-profit organizations, nonprofit organizations, government agencies, municipalities, school districts, and any and all of the above. When a adverse incident or matter or some accusation of something or some perception of some adverse matter is starting to make waves, and that could be in pick your favorite social media platform, online blog, news outlet, or simply just an internal employee WhatsApp, Slack channel, Yammer, whatever. Pick your favorite platform or internal, and it's disrupting operations. It's disrupting reputation. It's having customers, partners, team members, investors, or if you're a nonprofit donor, if you're a municipality taxpayers, constituents, it's starting to have them question whether or not they can rely on you, whether or not they can trust you. And I hopefully can come in and create for them a communication plan to address the issue, outline all the facts, and with empathy and action, talk about how they are trying to rectify the situation. And that includes even in situations where they're being falsely accused of something or somebody's misperceiving an action as being, an act of wrongdoing
Hmm.
when it wasn't, but help them correct that narrative, to help them, outline the full facts and get the story straight. I'll work on those matters as well. And I do that for a wide range of organizations all over the United States, and I'm privileged to do so.
I would assume that in your line of work, you probably end up talking to a lot of journalists. Is that true?
Yeah, I do converse with a lot of journalists, usually when the story has piqued the interest of a reporter or a producer or even a podcaster, in the non-traditional media or an influencer, I would call certainly in today's day and age a journalist. I'm helping them understand so they can inform their audience of what the full story is. Absolutely.
So, alongside your work in PR, you also lecture at San Diego State University's School of Journalism, right?
I do. I do. I've got two undergraduate classes and a graduate level class.
Wow, that's intense, it sounds like.
It's fun. I enjoy doing that. I enjoy helping, uh, whether it's juniors and seniors in journalism or advertising or business marketing or some other academic discipline, sort of test their mettle on the art of storytelling and truthful, relevant, impactful storytelling that has audiences interested and ultimately gain their trust to have some sort of relationship, whether the relationship is customer to a product, or employee to employer or investor on some level from that one, and help young people realize what a really cool profession this is.
What would you say are the benefits an education in journalism might offer?
Oh, I think journalism at its core is a discipline to tell a great story truthfully, accurately, concisely, in a way that gets people interested who otherwise have no vested interest to do so. And that doesn't mean necessarily for a for-profit organization or even a nonprofit cause, but it could be just the art of storytelling about people in general. And right now, I think that art is in more need than anything else. We are so bombarded with information because of these wonderful little mobile devices we are all addicted to and carry around in our pockets. And the problem with that is we're not really understanding people at their really core level because our attention spans have become so minute. Microsoft has a study that's now at least several years old that said the average attention span for some piece of information is 8 seconds. 8 seconds you've got to try to get somebody to want to know more. And so journalism, especially if the practice of journalism conforms to today's realities of how people want to receive information and want to engage and converse, I think journalism is in more demand than not. How do you tell a story in 8 seconds that gets people to say, "Hey, I want to know more. I want to potentially get to know you more because I understand you want to get to know me," and that relationship can carry forward for mutually beneficial relationships, whether it's for simple commerce, whether it's for opportunities or economic wealth or environmental preservation or just societal opportunities for betterment of communities and quite frankly, and I don't say this with for hyperbolic effects, but for the world, right? And I think the art of journalism can convey that if taught correctly.
Would you say then that the sort of quality of your storytelling is crucial in order to capturing not only attention, like you said, but also maintaining that attention?
Yeah, it's sustainability, right? It's not only the quality of your storytelling, the accuracy of your storytelling, the ethical nature of your storytelling, and having a point of view that you know this topic, whatever that topic is, whether that topic is growing up Gen Alpha in San Diego, right? I mean, it could be that niche. It could be best fish tacos in San Diego, right? It could be that kind of niche. You better know it better than anybody else and be able to justify it and showcase that and create an audience that is going to value that. So you don't have to necessarily be the biggest widespread, but you got to be the best at whatever you want to focus on in that today. Be not just an influencer, but one that creates a sustainable audience over time. And look, that's sometimes it's trial and error. You got to figure out the lane that meets the needs of the people and say it in a format that meets the demands of how they want to receive that information, and then in a way that quite frankly is sustainable, that people will pay at least enough for you to continue doing what you're doing.
So definitely, try to not only focus on things that you know about, that you have reliable sources in, but would you say that perhaps like a passion for that niche or whatever, would you say that's important as well?
Oh, you have to have a passion for whatever you're writing about. And I mean, that if there's a common thread between journalism and the turn of the 20th century to now, if you don't have a passion for what you're doing, if you don't believe in what you're doing, and you're not willing to work really, really hard and persevere to find out as much as you can about that and convey it in such a way that people want to know, you're not going to be successful. There's a, you know, there's an adage that find your passion, and I've heard other people say just find something you're good at, and I think it's really both. Find something you're good at, and if it's journalism, what is a particular topic you're good at, and then work really hard because you're passionate about learning more and doing more to actually make that to actually be that quality influencer that people rely on, whether that's an influencer that you are the CEO of, in addition to being the journalist, because you've set up a YouTube channel and a TikTok account, and you've got a medium.com page, or however you want to do it. and you're going to be writing, and people are going to be consuming, or you're working for an outlet that you're the person that everybody's going to go to through that media outlet to get the information. But however that is, you've got to have passion for what you're doing. And if you don't, go find something. Go find something you like to do that you're good at,
Mm-hmm.
and then be passionate about busting your ass, even when no one's looking, even when you're not being paid anything for it, to persevere and figure out then how to make it sustainable, and good things will happen. It'll take time, but I think that's true. And that's not just for the journalism profession, that or the PR profession like I'm in. That's for
true of everything.
That's true for anything, for sure.
Do you think the skills and habits taught through journalism coursework can be applicable to other careers? Not just in, like, say, media, for example, but like other things like management or communications?
Without a doubt. The one thing with journalism, and I think this is true with any sort of, I'll call it liberal arts education, is the concept of critical thinking, of being able to look at things in different ways, to be able to ask questions and understand what you don't know, and then be passionate about finding the information, synthesize that information in a way that you can effectively convey the key elements and the relatability, the relevancy, the importance to another audience. And that's true, as you just described, management to employees about a particular project or initiative or mission. That's true if you are a salesperson trying to convey an opportunity to a prospect. That's true if you're a CEO trying to get people to invest in your company, or executive director of a nonprofit, trying to get people to donate to further your cause. That's true if you are, quite frankly, in elected office, or you're a public servant trying to convince taxpayers and constituents to fund this sort of initiative. Those kind of critical thinking skills taught in journalism are true. I will say this, just to put a caveat: journalism is not the sole keeper of the critical thinking curricula. I think there's so many other disciplines that teach that as well. But if you're looking for an opportunity to do that with a emphasis in how well to communicate, and it's a journalism program that is applicable, and I guess I'll say current, to the realities of today, I think it's a great opportunity for any budding college student, or even high school student, or even somebody who maybe not enrolled in a formal academic institution, to go uncover through, pick your favorite media. I think those are important skill sets, to be sure.
Final question: do you have any advice to students who may be considering pursuing a degree in journalism? Anything at all?
Don't be afraid to try. And so that, I mean, if you're considering a career in journalism, and you've heard about all the things that journalists are, and all the things that they can do today, and the art of storytelling and things like that, and you're still not sure, give it a shot. I worry sometimes that students get concerned that they only have one shot to make what they would call the right decision, right? Like, oh, I'm thinking about it, but I don't know, is this really what I want to do? I hear it's tough to get a job in journalism. I hear it's tough to, I don't know about the, give it a go. Again, the skill sets apply in so many different areas. And sometimes it really requires you to take a couple classes before you go, yeah, this is really what I want to do. Or maybe it's not the exact right fit for me. Or third is, I really don't know at this point. Well, that's fine. Just try. Don't be afraid to try. And don't worry about the outcome. I think we also put way too much emphasis on, I'll call it the grade. And it's not just the letter grade for a course, but the outcome. Like, well, what happens when I'm done? Oh, man. Look, I was, in my undergraduate, I was a political science major who had a minor in criminal justice and became a United States Navy officer. It wasn't until I had the opportunity to take on a part-time collateral unpaid position in addition to my day job as a public affairs officer for a small ship that the light bulb went out for me. And then I pursued that career with a reckless passion. But I was out of college for almost 3 years before I got introduced to that, and had a career path that was, I was successful at least enough to keep getting promoted and moving forward. But you'll find it. So yeah, if people are out there, students, and they're considering it, well, take a couple classes and figure it out.
Mm-hmm.
And the other thing I'll say, and then I'll leave it alone, in addition to just giving it a try, talk to as many people in the profession as you can.
Mm-hmm.
You're like, I don't know anybody. Cold call, cold email, somebody that you know, pick a media outlet. Reporters in San Diego, and see who comes up. And there's a LinkedIn profile. And reach out to the person, say, and I'm a student, I'm thinking about journalism. Here's what I know. Can I take 30 minutes on a Google Meets call or a Teams call or a Zoom call, or can I meet you in person? And you'll be surprised how many will say yes. Maybe not all of them, but a significant amount. Because chances are when they started their career, they had the same questions.
Right.
And they know what it was like for somebody to reach out to them and say, yeah, I'll give you 30 minutes. And maybe they'll give you a tour of their office. And if they're working remotely, maybe they'll allow you to sit in on a couple stories they're developing. But you'll get to see it firsthand. And that's the real benefit of the art of trying and pursuing is you'll be introduced to things and experiences that will give you an idea. And if it doesn't click right away, totally cool. Don't worry about it. Just keep trying.
You never know if you don't try.
100%. And don't worry about whether it's going to succeed or not, or am I going to look stupid? Just do it. Every person who's been successful, whether it's in journalism or not, has taken a leap of faith on themselves, invested in themselves to just try, and has been rejected several times by people before they got to the yes. But it happens. So yeah, don't worry about that. Just worry about trying.
Mm-hmm.
You're enough. And I hope more people understand it. You're enough to try. It doesn't mean you have to know everything. It means you're enough to give it a shot. And if you get knocked down, you're enough to get back up. I am living proof. I promise you.
Well then, to put everything in a bow, if you're wondering if journalism might be right for you, the best thing you can do is to put yourself out there and find out. It's daunting, but since when did that ever make something not worth doing? Thank you for listening, and I hope you tune in again.